Hello witches, and welcome back to Activist Witch, where we discuss witchcraft and activism. You can call me Isha, my pronouns are she, they, and as you can tell from the unusual setup, today finally we're gonna do a Grimoire tour. I'm gonna show you not only my Grimoire Book of Shadows where I write my spells and the way that I organize them, but also my meditations, meeting with spirits kind of journal, and also the Witch's Spell a Day, which are also sides of my grimoires, and I've been having them for like the last 3 years now. So you're gonna see all the stuff that I dog-eared on all of those because it's all spells that I wanted to save. But before we get started, let me remind you that I've opened a Ko-fi, and on there you can do a one-off donation, a monthly donation, or even get a tarot reading with me Italian style. The low-income option starts at £5. And for the months of December 2024 and January 2025, you can get a year-ahead reading with me, but only for those 2 months, so get in! And for the foreseeable future, my profits from tarot readings go directly to support Cuccies to Gaza, who are part of the mutual aid groups that support Palestinian people evacuate and relocate to Egypt. Also, don't forget, we are in phase 2 of Witches for Palestine. Would you like to participate in the raffle and support Cuccies to Gaza? Click down in the video description below. I had this video planned for a while, but I knew that the setup would require some time. So the first that we're starting off with, it's my proper grimoire. It's leather bound. I actually just got it on eBay, I think, a couple of years ago, literally when I started to practice. This has become the index because stuff has been written around as it happened, and then at some point it needed an index, so this is the index. It has a dedication, and these actually, I just started witchcraft with going around parks, and so I was into herbs, and it made a pentacle, and why take it off? This is actually a dedication that I did with my own blood, that's why it's there, and let's get into it. As I told you, starting witchcraft for me was starting to go to my local park more often. So at the beginning I saved a lot of leaves. And this grimoire has been going on for over 2 years now. So it's my first and only grimoire so far. So you're literally seeing how it always has been and how it has evolved, actually. This is actually a copy of the very first spell that we ever did with Raven. I mentioned a few times the very first spell that I did was for protection because family is the most important thing to me. So it literally has the date, the phase of the moon, the day of the week. At this time I also was like already in Moon in Sagittarius, was the hour of the sun or Venus, and these were the values. I've always been into that, I told you from the beginning. The elements that I've used for that spell, any kind of words, how to perform it again. This is a one-off written like that because I will show you in another spell, but what I started to do is also take notes every time that I repeat that spell, saying if there are any variations. At the beginning, like I think most witches do, I started to write an essential compendium of things in witchcraft. So this was about the elements and the position of the elements and the color of the elements, elemental spirits, phases of the moon. I wrote a lot of these, but then as you can tell, I started to get tired. And some things that I just found online, I just decided to print them and attach them with very simple sellotape. I wrote also the years of the elements of the Chinese horoscope, because I personally always noticed that I recognize the cycle of 12 years. It might be because my Jupiter was in its domicile of Sagittarius when I was born, and so the luck comes back every 12 years for me. Or it might just be that actually Chinese fortune kind of makes sense. So I took these just in case, and so that I could have list even of the kind of element associated with the different years for Raven as well. This is based on the first exercise that I ever did with tarot, which was basically look at the cards, say or write what you feel it is about, and then check if it's correct or not in a guide. So that's where I wrote it. Basically, at the beginning, it was also an exercise book, I reckon. Yeah, this is all tarot, tarot, tarot. At some point, I also wrote as if it was a tarot journal. I stopped pretty quickly, but you'll see in a moment. So this is my, for example, standard money spell. And you see that there are pages attached with sellotape. Like, I genuinely have no great aesthetic in the way that I do things, but it's functional. Basically, what I will do with my next grimoire will be having a ring binder so that I can insert pages. But until I have this is how it goes. This is a printout of a kilo ingot of gold because sympathetic magic. And basically what I mentioned before is this is the default spell. This is actually where I found it, if I found it somewhere. This was the very beginning. I think the dates where I started to repeat it was like 6 November 2022. So this must have been October. I started to practice like on the 15th, 20th of September 2022. So that's why this is really early. You will see in the later spells that is just spells that Raven and I made from scratch. But at the beginning, like I went for these, and there's always adaptation. And so these are the things that I had every time that I repeated that spell. Like in the first time, I just used the basil leaf, the candle, and the incantation. In the second one, you can tell I went full throttle with sympathetic magic, and I went 3 candles, green and gold for money, red for action, and so speeding up things. I added oils, and I added basil oil and cinnamon, and then I had herbs, and I had ginger and clove and cayenne to speed up. So the interesting thing was, even when I redo that spell, if I change any elements, let's add a page to that spell so that it can tell me, when I look back, which one worked best. That's essentially the idea. You can tell that I've done this a few times. Yeah, success. This was still part of the tarot. I have 3 magic wands. I don't use them that often, but the first one was dedicated to my grandmother, so I talk a bit about her there. I have a third one now that is made hazel as well, so I have pictures of them that are just printed. This extends because I didn't know how else to manage, but I wanted it to be in the same page. It's very scrapbooky, and even in that it's not necessarily a lot of aesthetic, but it's functional for me. If I were to just go aesthetic, I would never write anything in it. I think Bente, the Norse witch, talked about that in their first grimoires, that they had so much anxiety about, oh no, it needs to be pretty, and that then you don't write in it. No, this is written in, as you can tell. This is hazel. This is the description of hazel, because the wands are what? Hazel. And this is actually a leaf of hazel. And this is a printout of an old encyclopedia with hazel. I'm an hazel person. This was the description of like the point of that wand, which is damburite. So all the descriptions of that. I tried to go aesthetic here. You can tell why it's not worth for me going aesthetic. I told you, I just had a thing about stuff in my park the first year. So yeah, this is just random leaves that I attached, identified, said when I got them and what it is. By now, I recognize pretty much every Japanese Mabel that I see, so it works. How to make moon water, spells for health. Very good one. This, as you can tell, and you can imagine then why I did the index at the beginning, it goes from spell to still sort of a compendium of information. So, the days of the week, what planet are they dedicated for, what are their energies. So it was a bit messy in the sense that it didn't have a side for spell and a side for the kind of information, which is why after a while I constructed the index. This is the first way that I started to cast a circle, and having it all written down here meant that I could just cast the circle with my grimoire. In time, I've severely reduced the kind of stuff that I say, and in fairness, nowadays I mainly do the LBRP, which Wicca circles are based upon anyway. This is just a general guide on how to craft my own spells, and so regardless of if a spell comes from a book or not, the idea is this is the information that I needed to actually, whatever the outcome, whatever the thing I want is, these are the things to keep into consideration to actually make a spell from scratch. And it actually makes sense with what I said recently, I think in my Vesta or my latest Venus video, about it's always working best with me when in a spell I focus on the feeling of getting what I want, not how I get what I want. So if I want prosperity, I don't think about a job, but I think about the feeling of feeling safe, feeling comfortable, feeling economically adjusted, that kind of thing. And it tends to work best for me. Moral spell, that's an oak. Yeah, clearing and consecrating objects. I don't consecrate objects anymore that often, but I've done it at the beginning, and I think it helps getting into the mindset when you use those objects at your altar or for a spell. So yeah, there's a process to do it with each one of the 4 elements, like salt for earth, incense for air. You sprinkle water for water, and then you pass it on top of a flame quickly, so it doesn't burn, but that's for fire. Definition of prosperity, so this was a bit of journaling as well. This was an interesting note, again, it was journaling as well. See, these were just tarot readings, so I did this for a while, and then thankfully I got a journal for tarot. And actually, I realized that if I brought in my tarot journals, we would have like 4 more. So at the moment, we're just doing the grimoires and the spells. If you would like a video about my tarot journals for the readings, for the journaling, for the reflections, let me know, and I'll make a video for those as well. Because I have a tarot journal for studying tarot, and now I have a tarot journal for Vesta and one for Venus. A sigil, cleansing and sealing mirrors, because that scared me at the beginning. All my mirrors are now locked anyway, so this is more just tarot readings that I did here. See, this is a money spell, but that repeats the basil spell of the beginning, just with different elements, and so I took note of them here. Removing obstacles, which it's also open road, basically. This is journaling for energy testing that we did, Raven and I, in holding crystals and see if we could tell what energy they carried. More tarot readings, house purification, the egg ritual, which I realized even people that are not witches do. Like, there's an entire subreddit dedicated to it. Italy has this thing about purifying a room by having a glass of water and salt in it. So I just took note of how that's done. I used to do it in the old house. I never needed to do it here, probably because, again, this house has good vibes. Moon water, solar water, sandbag spell. Travel protection, which is indeed something I needed in December 2022 because it's the last time that I traveled back from Italy. The main herb interesting there is comfrey, because it's literally not just for protection, it's for specifically travel protection. So, yes. Oils, herbs, crystals, the more I learned, the more I was like, sympathetic magic, let's bring all the correspondences. This is a spell to protect heirlooms. I have 2 things from my grandparents, so I want those protected. This is just a lot of herb bundles and the description of what they do, the different plants. Do not count on me actually, again, being aesthetic, because no. This is my second wand, which is dedicated to my grandfather, and it's poplar. This is actually a picture of the poplars that it was made from. This is actually from one of the Modern Witches companions from Llewellyn, and it was a way to magicify grooming, personal grooming, so brushing your teeth, showering. I think I talked about it in the low energy spells, and I transcribed it into my grimoire because it was easier to then refer back to. And it's basically a modern Zerniptosai, which is the Greek way that people would prepare themselves before deity worship. So yeah, there's something for washing your face, skincare, the lustral waters. This is all the stuff that you would say when you do the shower, and because I can't ever, it's too long, I've actually never done it. I just, yeah, literally say I cold water to cleanse my body, my soul, my spirit, my mind, because this is too much. This is the charm for when I brush my teeth, which again, it's in the low energy video. And it's just words that I repeat in my head because I'm brushing my teeth, so I can't say them. This is the infamous spell to secure a property that actually became my pact with Vesta. I speak about it a few times. It started because we needed to find a new home. We saw a house for which I did this spell. And that house didn't go through, but while doing that spell, I thought about, oh, wasn't Vesta the deity of the heart and the house? What if I ask her? And then she brought me a better one. So, bring it. I took note of how to anoint deity statues with oil because it's something that comes from the Hestia book of Nienna Alwee, which is all in French, but I knew this stuck in my head, and it's something that I still want to do for the statues that I have of Vesta and Venus. These are just like prayers that I've collected all written for Vesta. And again, I said before, I associate Zodiac by Mucha with Vesta, which is also the image in this jigsaw that is actually the bottom of the table, because the table is in front of Vesta's altar. So yeah, that's why I use the sticker there. Because I said it before in my house protection video, most of my house protection relates to Vesta. So these are the prayers that I use. At this moment, I do them shorter and by memory, I don't read them anymore, but it was useful to have them there. This was a meditation that I did with Vesta. At the beginning, meditations and visions would go in the Grimoire as well. I have since acquired a specific journal where I wrote that. We'll get there in a second. But I kept the original, of course. The Orphic Hymn. This is a sigil that I did for the success of my Etsy shop. Good little shop. And this is me calculating all the possible essential and accidental dignities that there were that day to see if it would help with the shop, which it should have, and slowly but certainly. This is the first spell that I did with Venus when I wasn't even working with her yet. I just asked her for that spell, and then we started working together. This is just a couple of pages dedicated to my first Lita, so it was the summer solstice of 2023. This comes from a candle that I got for Lita, and so I attached everything like this. And these are all the 4 spells that I think are there for Lita in the Llewellyn book of Midsummer. So I just transcribed them here to have them ready. This should be my astrology study, but I left it half undone. Like, these are signs, these are printouts of the meanings of the houses, but not only it's incomplete, but I genuinely think I would need its own journal to do this. That's why it's been left there. This is more like leaves and plants and herbs that I found. This is the equivalent of the page of Vesta, but for Venus, and it also has meditations that I did with her that now have been transcribed into the other book. This is a picture of the first time that I put everything together just on a table. It wasn't even an altar, and I was like, oh my goodness, it looks so pretty. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. This is a piece of mugwort, of the first mugwort that I identified and realized, oh my gosh, I have mugwort just out of my door, hence. This is literally a shorthand version of all the things that I needed to know and understand when I started to do the LBRP, the Lesser Banishment Ritual of the Pentagram. And it literally has all the information that I needed to understand that, like how I needed to do the Kabbalistic cross, what I needed to say, how I needed to sound, how the breath was supposed to go, the direction in which to use the pentacles. And this literally comes from the self-initiation in the Golden Dawn book. Astra passed me the information, but I'll link the book down in the description below. I used these like a month every day, and then it became automatic. So now I don't need these anymore because I'm just used to do it. Even though I don't do the LBRP that often anymore, I started off with the idea of doing it every day because apparently it just puts you in touch more with things, which I kind of get because you feel its power. It's just a matter of energy, eh? On this page, I have the tuning in chapter of Psychic Witch by Matt Oren, all in one page. Like, I know the full-on definition of how I need to do these things. It was getting very hard for me to remember in which order what was done, because it's an entire chapter on Psychic Witch. So I just wrote it here, done. Technically, these are all the things that one would need to do before doing any magic. It's a lot. I don't often necessarily do all of this because it could actually put me off. Like, if I have limited energy and I have to do all of this before actually doing a spell, I might just not do it. But it's nice to know if you have the energy, this is the full proper way. And if not, not. This is the spell to awaken psychic abilities that comes from Psychic Witch. I just wrote it down. Technically, if you do it every full moon, it should help. Supposedly you do it with a glass of water, taking the energy of the moon and then drinking the water. I exaggerated, and at times I made it with mugwort tea. You know, psychic, more psychic. This is the latest spell that I've worked on that Astra passed on me, which is just to protect our income. It's based on a psalm and on the 4th pentacle of Jupiter. And that's it. Like, this is still to be... the rest is still unwritten. At the back, I have... what I have? Let's find out, because I don't quite remember. Oh yeah, I have these which come from various vessels, from the kits of deities that I have from Aphrodite. These are the notes from our Minor Raven past life meditation. What else do we have? The ones for Hestia as well. This is just good paper to use for spells, because also it has flower seeds inside, so it seemed nice. Yes, I have my tables to calculate dignities and abilities with different bounds. This is just extra paper that I keep there in case I need to add a page. Oh, this is actually from the Daniel Blackwood workshop that I did in Glastonbury in August of 2023. And it was about the Saturn returns. So I kept the information there. And this is it. This is my main grimoire, how I keep it. Going forward, what I will do is definitely have a grimoire that it's a binder with rings, so that I can actually insert pages, so that a spell is written and then there are pages after that and a divider, that every time that I repeat that spell, it says what changed, what I used, that kind of stuff. So this, as I mentioned before, is my same meditation journal, in the sense that when I had meditations that I wrote in my grimoires, when I started to understand, actually, they might be their own thing, let's give them a journal, and this is what it is. Meditation journal, there we go. These are my meditations with Vesta, date, what happened, my meditations with Venus. I'm not a very meditation person, as you can tell. These are the ones with my grandparents and family. Sometimes they are written in Italian because, I don't know. This is a printout of my great-grandparents' graves. So I'm not necessarily going to show it because there's their names. This is something weird that happened. We don't need to go there. And this is actually not quite a meditation. It was a pendulum thing that Raven and I did in a peculiar way. And through the yeses or no, and Raven is very good at channeling, we got to the possibility that we spoke with my great-great-grandmother. This is it a meditation? Is it journaling? Is it different? This is miscellanea. Oh, and these are the results of meditations that I did, like when we were at sound baths, and readings that I did after that. This is to be fair and keep track of my popularity and the prosperity spell that I did in April that is still paying off. So this is taking note of all the things that happened and how they paid me for my art since. Because we need to remember those things, because I think it gets very easy after you cast a spell to just, rightfully, you know, they say, cast a spell, forget about it. And then stuff happens and you think that it's just happening because. I think it's very important to remember and to feel grateful. So that's why I did that last page there. Anything that happens in my life, in my career, that goes along what I considered success and prosperity, I write there. And all of those in the last page were gigs that I got from 10 days after that spell onwards, and it's still going. Right, the last bit, I just wanted to very quickly mention the Witches Spell a Day almanacs, because, A, if you're in the UK, the 2025, you find on my Etsy shop, a Coven of Two. And as you can tell, not just because, but I am an aficionado, like I've been buying it since I've been practicing witchcraft from 2022. And I discovered this quite late, and you can tell from the dog earring that there's a lot of goodies in here. What it is, I made this. What it is that for every day, it has literally what it says on the tin. It has spells. I don't necessarily bother writing these in my grimoires as well. I just dog ear it. and then I underline it and I know which spell, because usually there's 4 spells per page, because as an almanac it divides the days this way. But that's how I take note of them, basically. This was 2023. This is the current one in 2024. I have stuffed dog eared upcoming, because I'm like, I would like to do that. Most of these, though, are not actually bound to the day, which is the reason why it's good to just keep around, because some of them like do take into consideration, oh, my spell will go out on a Friday, do it on a Friday, stuff like that, or the spells that are, I don't know, specific for the Sabbaths. But other than that, it's just a book with 366 spells or meditations, and this is going to be 2025, which again, just shameless plug, if you're in the UK, you can get from a Coven of Two. Like, something that I really liked was, I don't know if you've seen the pictures on Instagram when Raven and I were in a cottage getaway for a few days. And while we were there, there was a lovely, lovely health spell, which I am keen on because we need to live forever. And this was the health spell of the apple a day, to the point that we got an apple from the village shop to do this. And this is actually one of the examples that I meant, like, this officially was for October 24th, which was a Thursday, but it actually tells you at the bottom, this spell can be done at any time, but it's best done on a Friday. So honestly, it's just a collection of spells, which is nice to have and keep, which is the reason why the other editions stay with me. Right, I hope this was useful, interesting, I don't know. Share down in the comments, let me know. Let me know if you would like a tour of my tarot journals and like see how I keep that. Again, one is for tarot study and the others are for the tarot readings that I do with my deities. Up to you, do let me know. Quick PSA, there's not gonna be a video next Monday or the Monday after. Regular scheduled content will come back to Activist Twitch on the 6th of January. So until then, I really hope that we can hex the patriarchy together, because there's need for it.